Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're managing a team right now, whether that's a small startup crew or a massive multinational, you already know that the dynamics of how we lead are changing at warp speed. Sticking to the old rules, that just isn't going to cut it anymore. We're going to take some pretty high-level academic concepts of modern leadership and completely deconstruct them into a practical playbook so you can actually build a thriving workplace.
Let's kick this off by thinking about our own worst workplace nightmares. Have you ever been in a meeting and just held back a brilliantly creative idea because you were terrified of looking foolish? Or, maybe you've had to navigate the daily emotional minefield of a truly toxic boss. We've all been there, right? These totally frustrating, career-stalling moments almost always boil down to one thing: a fundamental lack of effective leadership. So what does that actually look like in today's messy, complex world?
To answer that, we're going to conceptually build a house using 5 core pillars. We're looking at servant leadership, authentic leadership, ethical governance, cross-cultural leadership, and finally, psychological safety and engagement. All right, let's pour the foundation of our leadership house. Pillar number 1, Gwen Luk Fung Su, or servant leadership.
So we desperately need to make a fundamental shift here. We're completely moving away from that old-school boss mentality. You know the type. Dictating from the top down and treating people like disposable resources. Instead, we're looking at the modern builder. This is the servant leader. They share power, they obsess over developing their team, and they see their people as the absolute core engine of sustainable success. And look, this isn't about being soft or nice. It's a hardcore strategic capability for long-term adaptability.
But what does this actually look like on a Tuesday morning? Well, one of the most powerful tools in this kit is deep listening. There's this fantastic example in the research of a manufacturing CEO who noticed a massive spike in factory turnover. Rather than just yelling at HR to fix the numbers, this CEO actually walked to the factory floor and listened. Like, really listened. Turns out the issue wasn't the paycheck at all. It was unpredictable overtime schedules and completely chaotic pressure from middle management. By tuning into those unsaid anxieties, they fixed the root cause, not the symptom. That right there, that is responsible empowerment and leadership humility in action.
Moving right along to the second part of our foundation, we hit Section 2, Lang Dao Chun Tuk, which translates to authentic leadership. Okay, we need to clear up a massive misconception right out of the gate. True authenticity is not just saying whatever pops into your head without a filter. We have all encountered those leaders who are like, hey, I'm just a straight shooter, right before they say something incredibly rude or abrasive. That's fake authenticity. Real authentic leadership, it actually requires deep self-control, relational transparency, and some intense moral responsibility. It's about making sure your internal values consistently match your external actions. To pull this off, you need a few key elements, but I really want to hone in on balanced processing. This is when a leader actively hunts down opposing viewpoints to expose their own blind spots. A brilliant example of this is a fast-moving, highly decisive CEO who intentionally asks their CFO to completely tear apart major investment ideas before they sign off. They know their own biases, go, speed over everything. So they literally build a system to counter it. That requires incredible self-awareness. Now we're going to build the walls of our house with some firm guidelines, starting with Section 3, Dao Dik Trung Guan Tri, or ethical governance. Consider this classic moral dilemma. If one of your factories is just bleeding money, do you shut it down to save the larger corporation? Ethics at the corporate level isn't just about the CEO being a good person. It's about structural governance. According to utilitarian ethics, making the call for the greatest good of the majority, shutting it down might absolutely be the right move to protect thousands of other jobs. But a truly ethical organization acknowledges that this creates a very vulnerable minority who are losing their livelihoods, and it mandates policies to genuinely care for them.
A robust, resilient organization actually applies all these frameworks at once. They use deontological ethics to strictly enforce a zero-tolerance policy for bribery, even if it means losing a massive contract. They lean on justice ethics to ensure that promotions and bonuses are undeniably, transparently fair. Because honestly, if employees see the boss's favorite getting a totally unearned reward, trust in the entire system just evaporates. And they use care ethics so they never forget the human impact behind every single spreadsheet calculation.
The second wall of our leadership house brings us to Section 4, Lang Dao Da Van Ha, which is all about navigating complex, cross-cultural leadership.
Let's see how this actually plays out in the real world. Imagine a Vietnamese corporation acquires a foreign company. The Vietnamese leadership might be totally used to making lightning-fast decisions based on deep, personal relationship trust. But then,
The newly acquired foreign team flat out refuses to move forward without hard data, strict processes, and crystal clear boundaries. If the leader lacks cultural intelligence, they're going to wrongly conclude that this new team is just slow or untrusting, when in reality, they're just operating on a completely different culture of transparent governance and risk control.
To succeed across international borders, or even just bridging the gap between your Gen X and Gen Z workers, leaders have to understand these cultural dimensions. You absolutely have to develop high cultural intelligence. And most importantly, you've got to stop imposing your own personal cultural norms as the only right way to do things. It's really about translating your core values across entirely different contexts. Finally, we are putting the roof on our house with Section 5, Autonomy, competitiveness, or psychological safety and engagement.
Let's clarify something super important right now. Engagement is not the same thing as satisfaction. A satisfied employee might just really enjoy having an easy workload with zero pressure, right? But an engaged employee, they are investing their physical, cognitive, and emotional energy into the work. An engaged logistics worker knows they aren't just moving cardboard boxes from point A to point B. They deeply understand they are delivering on the brand's promise to the customer. They own the mission.
But here is the kicker. You cannot have genuine engagement without psychological safety. It is the absolute core of a modern, innovative workplace. It's this rock-solid belief that you won't be punished or humiliated just for speaking up. Think about a quality control worker on an assembly line. If they spot a minor flaw but stay completely silent because they're terrified of delaying a shipment and triggering the boss's legendary temper, that single instance of fear puts the entire brand's reputation at massive risk.
Now, there's this huge misconception that psychological safety just means being overly nice or lowering your expectations. No way. That is not true at all. The goal isn't apathy, and it's definitely not creating a lazy, comfortable country club environment. The real goal, combining incredibly high psychological safety with intensely high standards. As you can see, that is the only sweet spot where true learning, rapid innovation, and peak performance can actually happen. You're nurturing a space with high standards but low fear.
So how do you actually build that magic environment? You do it step by step. First, you reframe complex tasks as learning opportunities. Mistakes become expected data points, not these massive personal failures. Second, you actively invite voices. Don't just sit there and ask, any questions? Ask, hey, where do you guys think this plan is going to fail? And third, and listen, this is the make or break moment, you must respond productively. If someone tells you an ugly truth or points out a massive flaw in your strategy and you respond with anger, you've just trained your entire team to lie to you. But if you respond with gratitude, you've just built a culture of truth.
And please remember, psychological safety is absolutely not a free pass for reckless or unethical behavior. As leaders, we have to clearly distinguish between different types of mistakes. A brave learning failure where someone tried a bold new product design, you analyze that and you learn from it. But carelessness with safety protocols or an ethical violation like data theft, that requires immediate discipline or strict punishment. Psychological safety is there to protect the people who speak the truth, not the people who deliberately break the rules.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on today. Take a hard look at your own team, your department, your company. What kind of culture are you actively creating in your own sphere of influence right now? Are you building a fragile house of fear, silence, and top-down dictation? Or are you actively building a modern organization where your people are empowered, authentic, deeply engaged, and actually safe enough to speak the truth and innovate? The choice of what to build next is entirely up to you.